Welcome to Mr. Fright Nights, where nightmares come to life. If you love bone-chilling, immersive horror stories that feel real, stories that linger long after the last word, then you're in the right place. Before we begin, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more terrifying tales. Now, dim the lights, put on your headphones, and prepare yourself. Tonight's horror begins now. I don't remember when it started exactly. Maybe it was the day I brought my newborn daughter, Lily, home from the hospital. Maybe it was 3 weeks later, when the postpartum depression became too loud to ignore. All I know is that something changed in me, and I'm not sure I can trust what I see anymore. I'm Tanya, 32 years old, married to a patient but overworked IT consultant named Eric. We live in a modest suburban house that we spent our entire savings to buy. Perfect little nest, everyone said. A safe neighborhood, white picket fence, the American dream. But inside these walls, I've been unraveling. I used to be an office manager at a decent company downtown. Decent pay, decent hours. Then Lily came along, and everything turned upside down. For the first few months, I told myself it was normal to be tired, to be anxious, to cry for no apparent reason. The days blended together. Diaper changes, feedings, minimal sleep, repeat. Meanwhile, Eric tried to keep up with bills and groceries, and we both tried not to snap at each other. The baby monitor arrived as a gift from my sister-in-law. A high-tech model with night vision, two-way audio, even lullabies, built in. I thought it would be reassuring to keep an eye on Lily from anywhere in the house. Instead, it became the gateway to my nightmare. At first, I heard normal things. A soft cry when Lily was hungry, the rustle of blankets when she shifted in her crib. But then, one evening, as I was folding laundry in the living room, the monitor crackled with static. For a moment, I thought it was interference. Then I heard a second cry that wasn't Lily's. It was pitched differently, more like a wounded animal. My skin crawled. I rushed to her nursery, heart pounding, but found Lily, sleeping peacefully. The monitor still hissed with static in my hand. Eric insisted it was just a frequency glitch. Our neighbors might have a similar device. The rational explanation calmed me that night. I let it go, but I can't let it go anymore. That strange cry has come through the monitor more often, always when Eric isn't around. And that's not the worst part. Sometimes, I hear a lullaby playing in the background, one I don't recognize. It's definitely not the built-in tunes. It sounds older, haunting, like something from a dusty record. I haven't told Eric the full story yet. He already thinks I need therapy. Well, I do. I've been writing letters to Dr. Bernstein, a postpartum counselor, but I haven't actually sent them. I write them because I'm desperate to understand my own mind. In those letters, I confess that I feel like I'm losing time, forgetting entire chunks of the day. And I keep remembering a childhood memory, me in a crib, crying. But there's another baby next to me, a sibling. Yet as far as I know, I'm an only child. Dear Dr. Bernstein, I haven't spoken to you yet in person, but I need to get this out somehow. It's about Lily, and about me. I'm scared that I'm a bad mother. Sometimes I look at her and feel disconnected, like she's not mine. Then, guilt crashes over me, and I hate myself for even thinking that. But something else is happening, something that goes beyond simple postpartum depression. The baby monitor picks up weird sounds, like a second baby crying. I'm seeing reflections that don't match reality. I wake up at odd hours, standing by Lily's crib with no memory of getting out of bed. I can't talk to Eric about it. He'd worry, or worse, he'd chalk it up to hormones. I need someone who won't judge. I need help. Sincerely, Tanya, I reread, the letter for the 100th time, tears blurring my vision. I still haven't sent it. Part of me is too proud to admit I need professional help. Another part fears that if I tell someone, they might confirm I'm actually losing my mind. Today, though, something happened that pushed me further to the edge. I was alone with Lily in the house. Eric had left for a meeting. The day was quiet. No weird baby monitor sounds, no illusions in the mirror. I almost felt normal, so I started tidying up the nursery. I noticed the rocking chair in the corner was slightly askew, facing the window instead of the crib. I don't remember moving it. As I walked over to straighten it, a wave of déjà vu hit me so hard I had to steady myself against the changing table. My mind flickered with an image. Me, as a child, sitting in a similar rocking chair, an infant in my arms. But that's impossible. I was too young to hold a baby responsibly. It made no sense. Shaken, I left the nursery and decided to distract myself by browsing an old family photo album. My mother had given me a stack of pictures a few years ago, but I rarely look at them. Too many complicated feelings about my late parents. I flipped through birthdays, graduations, holiday dinners. Then I found one I'd never noticed before, a black and white image of my mother in a hospital gown, holding 2 infants. My heart stopped. My first thought was that it must be someone else, maybe a cousin. But my mother's name was scribbled on the back in my father's handwriting. No mention of twins, just a date and her name. The babies in the photo looked identical, each wearing a tiny knitted hat. Could I have had a twin sister who died? Or was adopted? My parents never said a word if that was the case. I can't confront them now. They both passed in a car accident before Lily was born. My head swam with questions. The more I stared at the photo, the more it felt like my life was built on a missing puzzle piece. Then Lily cried, snapping me back. I set the album aside and raced to her crib. She was fine, just hungry. But as I picked her up, the baby monitor crackled again. The second cry echoed in my ear, faint but unmistakable. I froze. Lily clutched to my chest, heart hammering. The memory of that photograph seeped into my thoughts like poison. I am sure of one thing. Something about this house and my past is colliding in ways I can't rationalize. Eric came home late tonight, so I put Lily to bed myself. I tried to calm my nerves by turning on the TV, half listening to the news. The anchor droned on about politics, local crime rates, the usual bleak topics. My mind kept drifting to that photo, the baby monitor, the possibility I might be hallucinating. Finally, Eric walked in, exhausted. He hardly acknowledged my anxious expression, immediately launching into complaints about an impossible client, how he's drowning in deadlines, and so forth. I waited for a gap in his rant to say, "Eric, I think there's something really wrong with me." He frowned. "What do you mean?" I tried to explain about hearing the second baby cry, the photo of my mother with 2 infants, the half-recalled memory of being in a crib with another child. His face went blank. He asked me if I was sure the photo was real, that maybe it was, her holding me and a friend's baby at the same time. But I couldn't shake the feeling that it was more significant than that. When I mentioned the baby monitor's weird cries, he sighed heavily. "It's probably interference," he said, repeating his usual line. "We can return the monitor and get a simpler model, okay?" I wanted to scream. Instead, I just nodded, feeling a wave of shame. Could I really be so unstable that I'm connecting random dots to form a horrifying picture? We decided to turn in for the night. As I lay in bed, listening to Eric's steady breathing, my mind spun. Eventually, I drifted into a restless sleep filled with twisted dreams. I saw a door in our hallway that doesn't exist in real life. I stood outside it, hearing 2 babies crying on the other side. I reached for the knob, but it kept moving away from me, like a mirage. When I finally woke up, cold sweat clung to my skin. I looked at the clock. 3:12 a.m. Lily's monitor was silent. My heart pounded, half expecting the second cry to burst through. But nothing happened. I felt relief, until I realized I was standing in the hallway, right where I dreamed that door was supposed to be. The normal wall stared back at me, blank and undisturbed. I don't remember getting out of bed. My bare feet were cold on the hardwood floor. My throat felt dry as sand. I hurried back into the bedroom, shutting the door behind me. My journal is by my nightstand. With shaky hands, I scribbled down everything I experienced, hoping that seeing the words might make it less terrifying. It didn't help. I couldn't fall back asleep, so I lay there, feeling Lily's presence across the hall, bracing for that second cry to slice through the monitor. It never did. Instead, the night stretched on, still and suffocating. Dear Dr. Bernstein, something odd happened today. I set Lily in her bouncer and turned away for just a second. When I looked back, the bouncer was empty. My heart stopped. I screamed, thinking she'd fallen or someone had grabbed her. Then I blinked, and she was there again, babbling away, as if she'd never moved. Am I losing my mind? It felt so real. I've never had such a vivid hallucination. I placed the pen down, my hand trembling. I'm not just losing time, I'm losing trust in my own eyes. The lines between dreaming and waking life keep blurring. Today, I tried to call my older cousin Dina, the only relative I have left on my mother's side. We drifted apart, but if there's anyone who might know about a secret twin, it's her. She answered, sounding cheerful, but the moment I asked if my mom ever had twins, her tone changed. She said something about not wanting to talk about family, drama, and hung up abruptly. I was left holding the phone, stunned and furious. That pretty much confirmed it, didn't it? Dina knows something but refuses to tell me. Maybe my parents gave my twin up for adoption. Maybe the baby died and they never wanted to talk about it. I spent the afternoon rummaging through every drawer, every box in the attic, searching for evidence. A birth certificate, a hospital record, anything. In a dusty trunk, I found a crocheted baby blanket labeled with my name in embroidered letters. Beneath it was another blanket, identical except the name was carefully removed. The threads were loose and frayed, like someone had ripped out the stitching. My hands shook as I held it. It was a tangible remnant of something, or someone, my family tried to erase. That night, I tried to share this discovery with Eric. He gave me a pitying look. "You're tired, Tanya," he said, making me feel like a child. "Let's not jump to conclusions." I didn't push the issue. We ate a silent dinner, talked briefly about the world outside, sports news, some upcoming policy changes in his company, like any normal family. Then we retreated to bed in separate orbits of tension. Around midnight, Lily woke. I trudged into her nursery, half asleep, and froze at the threshold. The rocking chair was moving, rocking back and forth as though someone had just stood up from it. Lily was in her crib, wide awake, arms reaching out to me. A flicker of movement in the corner of my eye made me spin, but the room was empty. Rushed to Lily, scooping her into my arms, heart in my throat. She gazed up at me with those big eyes. No tears, just a curious look, as if to say, "What's wrong, Mom?" I wanted to cry, because deep down, I wondered if maybe there had been another baby in that rocking chair moments before and I'd just missed it. I couldn't take it anymore. The next morning, I mustered the courage to actually contact Dr. Bernstein's office. They didn't have a same-day slot, but I booked the earliest appointment. In the meantime, I decided to do some investigating on my own. If I really had a twin, I needed to know. If I'm delusional, I needed to confront that too. I called the hospital where I was born. The woman on the phone said the records from that time were archived, but she'd try to pull them for me. I left my number, feeling foolish, but at least it was a start. Eric left for work, and I sat in the nursery with Lily, rocking her gently. The baby monitor was silent in my hand. No second cries. Then I remembered the family photo album. I grabbed it from the bookshelf. Flipping through carefully, I found the picture of my mother holding 2 infants. I stared at it, trying to glean any clue. The second baby's face was partially obscured by a blanket, but it definitely looked like a newborn. Next to it, my mother had a weary but joyful expression. A surge of anger welled up in me. How could they hide this? Even if the baby died, why keep it a secret? Or if the child was adopted out, did they think I'd never find out? Lily cooed in my lap. I pressed the photo to my chest, tears slipping down my cheeks. My mother wasn't here to explain. All I could do was piece together the puzzle. Later that evening, as I prepared dinner, I caught a glimpse of myself in the hallway mirror. My reflection seemed off, pale, gaunt, eyes sunken with exhaustion. I stepped closer, looking at my reflection. For a split second, I saw something else. Behind me, another woman, identical to me except for vacant, hollow eyes. My stomach flipped, and I whirled around. Nothing. Just empty air. I nearly shattered the mirror with my fist, frustration overwhelming me. Instead, I forced myself to breathe, to remind myself I had an appointment with Dr. Bernstein soon. I needed to hold on until then. But that night, the baby monitor delivered its worst trick yet. Eric was working late on a big project. Lily was asleep by 8. I retreated to the living room with a cup of tea, baby monitor by my side, flipping channels aimlessly. My nerves were raw, but I tried to distract myself with mindless sitcoms. At 9:17 p.m., the monitor hissed. I muted the TV, heart rate spiking. Lily's voice came through, a soft whimper. Then that second cry layered over it, this time louder than ever, a keening wail that made the hair on my arms stand up. It sounded pained, desperate. My hands shook as I watched the tiny video feed. Lily lay in her crib, stirring. But next to her, the monitor showed another shape. It was faint, barely a silhouette, like static forming the outline of a baby. I couldn't breathe. I sprinted to the nursery, monitor clutched so hard my knuckles turned white. Burst inside, the crib held only Lily squirming. The second shape was gone, if it ever was there. My eyes darted around the room, searching corners, scanning every shadow. Nothing. The monitor's speaker continued to crackle, that second cry still echoing as if from somewhere else. I lifted Lily into my arms, pressing her close, my chest tight with terror and confusion. Then, from the hallway, I heard a new sound, footsteps. Eric? He wasn't due home for another hour. My breath caught. The footsteps reached the nursery door. I braced myself. The doorknob turned, and Eric stepped in, looking concerned. Tanya, what's wrong? I heard you running. Relief flooded me. But it was short-lived, because the second I tried to speak, the baby monitor flared again with that eerie cry. Eric frowned, taking Lily from my arms, patting her back gently. What's that noise? I stammered. I told you it's the same thing I've been hearing. Another baby? He grabbed the monitor from my hand. The video feed still flickered with heavy static. Eric's eyes narrowed. It's probably broken, he said, more to himself than to me. He fiddled with it, turning it off and on. The second cry vanished. Lily fussed a little but settled in his arms. I'll get us a new one, he finally said, voice tight. This is ridiculous. I wanted to argue, to say that it's not just a glitch, that something deeper was happening, but I swallowed my protest. He looked so tired. We both did. An hour later, Eric left me alone with Lily again while he tried to debug his laptop in the office. I stood in the hallway, eyes fixed on the mirror. That's when I noticed the door. Again, the one from my dream. Except now, it was faintly visible, like a ghostly outline right where the mirror's reflection hung. My breath caught as I ran my hands along the wall, but it was solid. No door, just paint and plaster. I sank to the floor, Lily in my arms, feeling like I was trapped in a labyrinth of illusions. My appointment with Dr. Bernstein was scheduled for the next morning, but I never made it. Something unthinkable happened during the night. I woke at 2:45 a.m. to Lily screaming, not fussing, screaming in abject terror. I tore out of bed with Eric right behind me and burst into the nursery. Lily's crib was empty. The side rail was down, as if someone had yanked it open. My blood froze. Then we spotted Lily lying on the floor a few feet away, her tiny body thrashing like she'd just been dropped. She was unhurt, thank God, but inconsolable. Eric scooped her up, shaking with anger and fear. He demanded to know how the crib got opened. I had no answer. At that moment, the baby monitor beeped. Low battery. Eric slammed it onto the dresser, cursing about the faulty device. My mind whirled with horror. Had I sleepwalked again? Did I take Lily out of the crib? The idea that I could hurt my own child, even accidentally, made me sick to my core. I couldn't meet Eric's eyes. We spent hours trying to calm Lily, who sobbed uncontrollably. When the sun finally rose, we were beyond exhausted. Eric left a voicemail for Dr. Bernstein, rescheduling, insisting I get help as soon as possible. I barely spoke. Later, as I tried to gather myself, I glimpsed the rocking chair again. The missing crocheted blanket I found in the attic was draped over its back. I was certain I'd hidden it in my closet. Now it was out in the open. My vision, blurred, a memory flickered through my mind. A baby, not Lily, in that blanket, crying, arms stretched toward me. My phone buzzed. A voicemail from the hospital. The records for my birth year were incomplete. They couldn't confirm anything about second infant, another dead end, another wave of frustration and dread. That's when I heard the lullaby. Soft, coming from Lily's room. My gut twisted. I tiptoed to the nursery door, pushing it open. The baby monitor was turned off and lying on the floor. Lily was asleep in her crib, her chest rising and falling peacefully. The lullaby drifted from nowhere. My gaze darted around, searching. Nothing. And then I saw it. In the mirror attached to Lily's dresser. A reflection of me holding a second baby, the crocheted blanket draped over its tiny form. My reflection's eyes were vacant, rocking that phantom child. I screamed, stumbling backward. The mirror showed only me, alone, face twisted in panic. I have no memory of writing these last words. All I know is I'm terrified. Terrified that I have a sister who never left, or that I am somehow seeing an echo of a life that never was. That second cry, that second baby, won't leave me alone. And if it's all in my mind, how do I protect Lily from the horrors I'm creating? As I set down my pen, I glance at the nursery door. It's open just a crack. The soft glow of a nightlight spills into the hallway. I can still hear that lullaby, faint as a whisper. My mind begs for answers that may never come. Some questions remain better unanswered.